Before we begin, take a moment to settle in wherever you're listening from, whatever time it is. This story will wait for you, and if you find peace in these quiet histories, consider subscribing, not for the rush, not for the thrill, but to keep these slow journeys coming, one whisper at a time. Now, close your eyes if you can, breathe, and come with me into the shadowed corners of the medieval world, a place of stone and whispers, of flickering torchlight and the quiet dread of those paid to disappear others, because for all the myths and legends, for all the hooded heroes and rooftop leaps, the truth is simpler and far, far grimmer. Being a medieval assassin was awful. They didn't call them assassins. Not really. Not in the streets. Not out loud. Names like that were dangerous. You were a knifer, maybe. A silencer. A cleaner. But more often, no name at all. Just a man who knew when to be unseen and where to make the cut. You were not trained in towers. You did not read scrolls. You did not leap into hay. You crouched behind barrels. You waited for hours. You worked with shaking hands in alleys that smelled of rot. If you were lucky, you were paid in coin. If you were unlucky, you were paid in promises. And promises in the medieval world were worth even less than your life. Let's start in a city, not a grand one, a real one. Narrow streets, soot-covered stone, tallow candles in dirty windows. You've been given a name, no reason, just a face, a man who owes the wrong merchant, or who insulted the wrong priest, or who's seen something he shouldn't have. You do not ask why. You do not care. You follow, from the market, past the bread stall, across the bridge, with the broken railing. You walk like someone looking for a friend. Not too fast, not too close. You've been seen before. You've been remembered before. And it nearly cost you your throat. Your knife is hidden in your sleeve, wrapped in cloth to stop it from clinking. The blade is short, not because it's elegant, but because it's all you could afford. The handle is bone, worn smooth. You touch it as you walk, not for comfort, for certainty. You do not fight. You strike, and then you run. But that's the plan. The job never goes to plan. Tonight, the man takes a different turn. He steps into a tavern. You wait. You count the breaths. You count the coins in your pouch. You count the reasons to walk away. Then you step inside. The tavern is loud, not with joy, with survival. Men argue about bread prices. Someone coughs blood into a rag. A woman eyes you with a look that could kill or kiss. You don't meet her gaze. You see him, back corner, hunched, bread in one hand, beer in the other. You wait. You sit. You drink. The ale is sour. Your stomach turns. You haven't eaten since yesterday. He stands. You follow. This time he takes the alley near the tanners, the one that smells of boiling skin and despair. Good. Fewer eyes. You press closer. Your heart doesn't race. It sinks. You step forward. He turns. Faster than expected. He knew. You see it in his eyes. Too late. He lunges. You step back. The blade finds ribs, yours or his. Doesn't matter. You both fall. He bleeds louder, but you bleed deeper. No one helps. No one asks. In the medieval city, two men dying in a gutter is not a story. It's a Tuesday. You survive. Barely. Someone drags you from the alley, not out of kindness, out of curiosity. A healer stitches your side. He doesn't clean the knife first. Fever comes. You drift. The world spins. You wake with 3 teeth missing and half your pay gone. The job still unfinished. He lived. You know it. And now someone else will come for him, and maybe for you, because you were seen, because you failed. And in your line of work, there are no warnings, only endings. What time is it where you are right now? Is the sky dark? Is your room quiet? Are you listening from a small town or a sleepless city or somewhere in between? Wherever you are, you're safe here. This story won't ask anything of you, just your stillness. Let's return now to those narrow streets, to the shadows that walk without names, to the assassin who should have walked away. You heal slowly. In the medieval world, healing is not a certainty. It is a negotiation between your body, the weather, and whatever the flies leave behind. Your fever breaks on the 5th day. You wake up soaked in your own sweat, your tongue dry, your ribs raw. The healer is gone. His space is empty. You'd used up your welcome. You pull yourself up by the edge of the wall, everything aching. Your side burns where the blade pierced it. Poor stitch work. Twine, probably, but you're alive, and that's more than most can say. Outside, the city hasn't changed. The air still smells of smoke and wet wool. People still shout about bread, debts, and saints. No one stops you. No one asks. A man bleeding in the daylight is part of the scenery. You pass a butcher sharpening a cleaver. He nods at you without interest. He's seen worse. You duck into an alley, press your back to the cool stone, and breathe. You're not safe. Not yet, because the job failed. And in your world, failure lives longer than names. You hear whispers already. That someone asked about you near the docks. That the guildmaster's man was seen in the market, watching. You were not part of a brotherhood. Not really. But someone gave you work. Someone paid you. And someone else noticed that your hands weren't clean. Now you're a liability. You can't go home. You haven't had a home in years. But now, you can't even go to the places that pretended to be home. The cellar tavern, the steps of the old shrine, the one-eyed woman who used to let you sleep in her stable for a coin and a favor. You're marked now, a half-dead job with no payout. So you vanish, not like the stories. You don't leap over rooftops. You don't disappear in a cloud of smoke. You just stop being seen. You avoid doors. You walk in gutters. You steal food from carts when the baker isn't looking. You sleep in basements that rats have abandoned. You wash in puddles. You become a ghost. But ghosts still need money, and pain doesn't pay. So when the next offer comes, you listen. A woman in a dark hood, voice soft but sure. She doesn't tell you the target's name, only the location. A small chapel on the hill. Midnight. The target will be in prayer. No guards, no crowd. Clean, easy. You nod. You lie. There is no such thing as clean in your line of work. You make the climb that night with a dull blade and a weaker heart. Your breath fogs in the cold. The chapel windows glow faintly. You slip in through the back. The door is unlocked. Odd. The candlelight flickers. You move quietly. No footsteps. No sound. Just the steady chant of someone kneeling. You see him, back turned, robes simple, old. You hesitate. He doesn't. He speaks. I wondered how long it would take you. You freeze. He doesn't turn. I was like you once, he says. Angry, hungry, disposable. Your fingers grip the blade tighter. Do it, then, he says. The gods are quiet tonight. You step forward, but something has shifted. There is no fear in him, only exhaustion, only the peace of someone who has already died, but not yet fallen. You stop. You look at your blade, at your hand, at the life you've been dragging behind you, like a corpse on a rope, and you step back, out of the light, out of the chapel, out of that moment. You don't run, you just walk, slowly, like a man who's tired of bleeding. The road away from the chapel is long, not in distance, but in thought. Your boots scrape the frost as you walk. The sky is cloudless. The stars above watch in silence, like cold judges with no interest in mercy. You don't look back. There's nothing behind you worth seeing. The blade in your hand feels heavier now, not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't. Mercy doesn't taste sweet. It tastes like ash. You know what they'll say. That you hesitated, that you failed again. And failure, twice, isn't a warning. It's a sentence. The city feels smaller when you return. Every alley sharper, every footstep louder. You notice things now. Eyes behind shutters. A dog that won't stop barking. A beggar who looks away too quickly. You've lived long enough in this life to know when the walls are closing. They won't send a crowd. Not for you. You're not important enough for that. But someone will come. One, maybe two, and they'll be better than you. Younger, hungrier. You've seen it before. You make for the outskirts, past the dye pits, past the dried out canal, past the row of abandoned grain stores. There's an old cooper's shed out there. Roof half collapsed, but dry enough. You press your back against the far wall and listen to the wind moan through the rafters. You close your eyes, but you don't sleep. Not anymore. When you were younger, you could sleep anywhere. on slate, on straw, on blood-stained floors. But now your body remembers every bruise, every mistake, every close call. You didn't walk away from clean. Your side throbs where the old wound never healed right. Your jaw still clicks where a merchant's bodyguard broke it with a club 2 winters ago. You run your fingers over your ribs, counting 1, 2. Yes, still whole, but only just. The hours drag. The moon moves across the sky like a slow blade. You breathe shallow. There's no fire, no warmth, only the stench of old wood and rotting rope. You eat what you stole earlier, a crust of bread, black around the edges. You chew slowly, not because you want to savor it, but because your teeth can't take anything harder. You think of the man in the chapel. He didn't flinch. You try to picture what it feels like to kneel before something and mean it, to pray not for escape or silence but for peace. You can't imagine it. Your gods were always too far away to hear. When morning comes, your breath is a mist. Your limbs don't move right, but you stand, because standing is all you know. You walk south, no destination, just a way. You pass peasants carrying sacks of turnips. They don't look at you. To them, you're just another broken man walking from something. And they're not wrong. You trade a brass buckle for a ride in a cart. The driver doesn't speak. He smells of onions and wool. You sit in the back, the boards cold against your spine. The trees blur by. Villages blink into view and disappear again. You rest your head against a sack of grain, and for a few minutes the ache eases. When the cart stops, it's dusk. The driver nods once and leaves you by a fork in the road. One path leads to a mining town, the other to a river port. You pick neither. You walk into the woods. The path is faint, but you know how to read it. Broken branches, moss, bird song that suddenly cuts short. You find an old hut just past a fallen tree. Used to be a hunter's place, maybe empty now. You build no fire. You unroll no blanket. You just sit and wait. Because if they're coming, they'll come at night. And if they're not, then you still don't sleep. Only listen to the branches cracking, to your heart slowing, to the wind carrying whispers that might be leaves or might not. The forest presses close. The darkness here is thick, not with danger, with memory. You lean back against the wall and breathe in the rot and cold and dust. And for a brief moment, you don't feel hunted, only forgotten. And that's almost the same as peace. The forest holds its breath, the kind of silence that feels thick, like old wool. It clings to you, gets into your throat, your ears, your teeth. Somewhere far off, an owl speaks, low, 2 notes, then nothing. The wind rises, but never truly stirs the trees, only brushes across the tops like a hand you can't quite feel. You haven't moved in hours. You're used to stillness. It was one of the first things you learned: how to be a shadow, how to sit in the dark and become part of it. But this is different. This isn't patience. This isn't calculation. This is weariness, wrapped around your bones like frost. You haven't been hunted in days now. No footsteps, no voices, no strange glances in markets, no warnings, and that is its own kind of danger, because quiet can be a kindness, or it can be a trap. You shift your weight on the wooden floorboards. The hut creaks, but softly. You know every sound it makes now, every groan in the rafters, every shift in the roof when the breeze changes. A place like this becomes a part of you fast. When you're living moment to moment, the mornings come gray, cold. Your joints complain louder than your thoughts. You light no fires, but you chew dried meat slowly, one bite at a time, the way you were taught. You boil water with stones, the peasant way. You drink in sips. You don't clean the blade much anymore. There's little left to clean off. No jobs, no contacts, no targets. You are a sword that was never sharp enough to be kept. You walk the woods during the day. Not far, just enough to stretch. Sometimes you find tracks: deer, rabbit, once a boar. You don't follow them. You're not hunting. You just want to remember what it means to watch something without needing to kill it. There's a still pond a few minutes from the hut. That's where you wash. Not often. It's cold. But every few days, you step in, waist deep. You feel the sting of it in your ribs, your spine, your legs. You curse quietly. You dip your head under and come up gasping. The forest doesn't laugh. It just waits. You dry off in the sun, when there is any. Otherwise, you just shiver and walk. You've grown thinner. Your fingers look longer now. Your face more hollow. But the hunger doesn't bite as hard anymore. Your stomach learned its lessons. It stopped asking. One day, you find a small bird tangled in a hunter's snare. Wing bent, eyes wide with terror. You crouch beside it, and instead of killing it quickly, you loosen the loop. You place it on your open palm. It doesn't fly. It just sits, and for a long moment, it feels like the two of you understand something unspoken. Then it flutters and disappears into the trees. That night, you sleep, really sleep. Not with one eye open, not with your hand on the hilt, not with your back to the wall. Just sleep. And when you wake, the world feels different. Not better, just less sharp. You sharpen your knife out of habit. The stone is almost worn down now. You wonder, idly, what will vanish first, the blade or the one who holds it. On your next walk, you see smoke, far off. Not forest smoke, not clean, pitchy, black controlled. You crouch behind a thicket and watch. A cart, two oxen, a man leading them, and a small boy walking behind. Farmers or merchants. Too well fed to be from around here. They're camped by the bend in the trail. You stay hidden, but you listen. They talk of cities, of prices, of taxes. of a noble in the north who was murdered in his bed last month. Poison, the man says. Blade, the boy guesses. No, the man corrects. Hands. You feel your chest tighten. You know that method. You knew the man who used it. A drunk with thick wrists and no conscience. He liked to sing while he worked. You remember the sound of it. Slurred verses over choking. They say it was political. A rival house. Some dispute about borders. But you know better. There's no politics in that kind of work. Only gold and silence. You wait until they're asleep to move. Not to kill, just to take. The pack lies close to the fire. You creep forward. The dirt muffles your steps. You reach it, open it, feel inside. Grain, cloth, salt, a coin purse. You take only the salt. You could have taken more, but you don't. You retreat into the trees. The next day, you use the salt to clean your cuts. The old wound on your side opened again. It burns, but it burns clean. Later that week, you hear voices, closer than before. Rough, measured hunters? No, too careful. They're tracking someone. You. You slip into the underbrush, heart slow. You press yourself against a tree and listen. A man with a southern accent. A woman with a scarred voice. They speak in signals, not names. You see it. North, line, still warm. You leave no tracks after that. You change your routes. Double back. Sleep in the trees when you can. You chew bark to hide your scent. You breathe through cloth, and they stop coming. Or they stop being loud. Either way, you remain. More time passes. You mark the days on the hut wall. Not for memory, just to remind yourself the world is still turning. The cuts grow slow. The bruises fade. You find a new pond, deeper than the last. It reflects the moon. One night, you look down and see a face that doesn't look like yours. Not quite. Too thin. Too tired. Too quiet. But maybe it's always been that face, and you just didn't want to see it. You wash again. Hands first. Then your arms. Then your face. Then the blade. You hold it up. It catches the moonlight, like it remembers something you forgot. You don't throw it away, but you set it down. For the first time in a long time, you just let it rest. You leave the blade in the hut that day, not out of peace, not out of transformation. Just wait. You're tired of the wait. You walk farther than usual, through the woods, past the pond, past the tree where you once saw the hawk land and tear a snake in two. You keep walking. There's a ridge at the edge of the trees where the ground rises up like a shoulder. You climb it, slow, boots slipping in the loam. At the top, air, wide, hard, cold. The land stretches out in layers. Mossy hills, crooked fields, a thin ribbon of road winding toward nothing. You sit on the ridge and pull your cloak tighter. The wind cuts through it like old bone. There's a village out there, somewhere. You haven't gone to it. You don't need more eyes, more questions, more chances to be seen. But part of you wonders what it might feel like to walk into a place like that, not as a shadow, but as a man. Buy bread, sit by the fire, listen to someone speak without needing to measure the distance to their throat. You close your eyes. The sun is pale behind your eyelids. Your thoughts slip sideways. You remember the first time you were paid. Not much. A few silver coins. A knife with your name scratched into the hilt. Misspelled. Badly. The target was a man who sold counterfeit prayer beads. He'd shorted someone who knew someone else. You were told he was cruel. Loud. He turned out to be neither. Just tired. Thin. Too slow to run. You did what was asked. You were praised. You drank afterward. Hard. Not to celebrate. To forget the way his breath caught when he saw the knife. It never gets easier, they said. They lied. It gets quieter. You stop hearing it. You stop looking. You stop naming them. But now, years later, a scarred ghost on a cold hill, you remember him. You see his face, not clearly, but enough, and you wonder, was there someone who missed him? Someone who woke up the next morning and found the chair empty, the bread untouched, someone who asked questions, someone who mourned, or did he just vanish, like you almost did? You stay on the ridge until the cold needles your knees. Then you rise. You walk back the long way, avoiding your old tracks, looping through dead bramble and frost-bent trees. When you reach the hut, the doors open. You don't panic. Panic makes mistakes. You circle wide, crouch behind the rock, watch. No movement, no smoke, no sound. You draw your second blade, the smaller one, not sharp anymore, but familiar. You step through the door. Nothing, just the same smell of wood and mold and rot. You scan the space. The sack you used as a pillow is missing. The ash pile by the corner is disturbed. Someone came through, didn't stay, took something small, left something worse. The knowing that you aren't alone anymore. You eat that night with your back against the outer wall, half a heel of bread, softened with rainwater. You chew in silence. The wind pulls at the edge of the roof. You don't sleep. Not really. Only fade in and out. Dream of firelight. Bootsteps. Voices you recognize but can't place. In one dream, you're back in the city, kneeling in a candlelit room, listening to a list of names read out from a silver scroll, each one followed by a coin, each one stamped into memory, and yours is the last name spoken. You wake with your jaw clenched so hard it aches. There's blood in your mouth from where you bit your cheek. You spit, stand. The hut feels smaller, like it's closing in. You leave again, but this time with the blade. You pass the pond, the tree, the ridge. You don't stop. You keep going. Beyond the places you know. Beyond where you've wandered before. There's an old road, barely a path now, covered in ivy and dust. You follow it. It winds, twists, disappears. But your feet remember how to track, and eventually It leads to a hill, and on the hill, a house, old stone, no windows, just slits. It used to be something, a watch post maybe, or a retreat. You approach carefully. No fire, no voices, but signs of use. Scuffed ground, a rope nailed into the door frame, a smear on the wall that looks like wax or blood. You circle the house. Slow. There's a hole in the back wall. You slip in. The air inside is thick. You listen, then move. There's a man sleeping in the corner. Boots on, cloak still drawn. Not a traveler, too alert, even in sleep. You know that pose. You've worn it yourself. You don't wake him. You leave something behind. A piece of bark, cut with a single mark. A symbol you once used when you had allies. A warning, a mercy, a memory. Then you vanish again. No one sees you, because no one should. You don't return to the hut. You keep moving. North, this time. Toward colder winds. Toward hills where even names disappear. You pass a river at dawn. Frozen at the edges. Running slow. You crouch. Drink. The water tastes like stone. You feel it settle in your chest. Heavier than air. More real than fear. And when you rise, the sky is just beginning to turn gray to pale blue. No color yet, but the shape of the day is there, waiting, and you walk into it, not to run, not to find, but to endure, because that's all there is left now. For a man who lives between shadows, there is no finish, only farther. Tools, the path dissolves beneath your feet. First it was stone, then gravel, now just frost-bitten moss, thick with the smell of old pine and stillness. You move like smoke, no destination, just motion. The days bleed together. The morning sky is always the same faded gray, like wet linen left on a roof. The nights are darker than ink, the kind of black where even your thoughts echo too loud. You no longer count days, or steps, or meals. You only count the moments when you're seen, and lately there have been none. You pass shepherds who don't look up, traders who don't glance twice, children too young to know what a killer looks like. You could be anyone now, a tired man with cracked boots and a limp, a nobody, and for the first time, you don't resist the shape of it. You take what you need, a turnip from an unguarded cart, water from a snowmelt stream, warmth from the sun when it's strong enough to touch your skin. You ask for nothing, give nothing, leave nothing, but not because you're cruel, because it's safer that way. In a clearing one morning, you find a shrine, wooden, half-rotted, covered in lichen, a stone slab at its base, carved with a name that's been eaten by rain. You kneel beside it, not in reverence, in weariness. You place a small coin on the stone, your last, not as payment, not as offering, but as release. You won't need it where you're going. Where are you going? It doesn't matter. There's no plan anymore, just breath and steps and the steady erosion of memory. You sleep that night under a fallen tree, curled like a question mark. Your dreams are broken glass, faces from your old life, men with blades, women with bags of coin, children you passed in markets. None of them speak. They only watch. You wake with blood on your tongue, from grinding your teeth, from biting back the scream you couldn't swallow. Your hands shake. You ball them into fists until the tremor passes. Then you rise. Then you walk. A town appears days later. Not a city, just a clot of stone houses around a well. No wall, no watchman. The kind of place that forgets names quicker than it forgets winters. You stay at the edge, sleep in the loft of an abandoned mill. Watch the people move like ants below. You don't speak to anyone until the dog, old, lame, fur-like, knotted rope, it finds you one evening, nosing through the mud. You don't chase it away. You tear a strip from a dried root and toss it. It doesn't fetch. It just lies down near your boot. That night, it sleeps beside you, breath shallow, tail twitching in dream. You don't name it, but you check each morning to make sure it's still breathing. It stays with you for 7 days, then doesn't return. You don't look for it, but you sit up a little longer that night, just in case. The people in the town are quiet. They speak in low voices, and only when they must. You hear talk of a man who vanished, a woman who left behind a locked chest and never came back, a child who wandered too far from the path and saw something in the woods she won't describe. No one says your name. No one would know it if they did. But you still keep moving. The hills rise again. The wind sharpens. Your bones feel brittle in the cold. You find another hut, this one made of stone, low, sunken, likely used by hunters. In the seasons when deer still came this far down, you take shelter, not for long, just to wait out a storm. The snow is dry, biting. Your fire smokes more than it burns. You wrap your hands in cloth. You listen to the wind scrape against the stones, like a whisper trying to become a scream. For 2 days, you don't leave. You ration what little you have. You catch a squirrel on the third, eat it raw. Your stomach rolls, but you keep it down. You wipe the blood from your lips and breathe through your nose. It's not the worst thing you've eaten, not by far. On the 5th day, the snow stops. You walk again, slower now. You have less weight, less warmth, less reason, but your feet keep moving. They know no other rhythm. In a gorge, you find tracks, fresh, 2 sets, boots, heavy. One drags a little. You follow them out of habit, even though you know better, even though you know where they lead. The men are camped by a cave. You see the smoke first, then the shapes. One sits, sharpening a blade. The other coughs into his sleeve. You recognize the cough, the rhythm, the wetness in it, the way he leans to one side. You knew him once, years ago. You don't say anything. You just watch, and then you leave. You take a wide arc through the trees. They don't see you, and you're glad, not because of danger, but because you have nothing left to say to anyone who still remembers who you were. That night, you dream again, but not of death, not of knives. You dream of a boy in a grain field, running from something, but laughing. You don't know who he is, but the sound of his joy cuts deeper than any wound. You wake with your face wet, the trees above you silent, and the sky full of stars you don't remember ever seeing before. The stars don't blink. They stare. They watch like old gods who no longer interfere, only witness. You lie beneath them, unmoving, breath slowed, limbs heavy, and for a moment you imagine what it might feel like to float upward, to leave the cold and blood and memories behind, to rise without sound, without weight, without name, but the earth always pulls you back. Your muscles creak as you stand, bones stiff with the chill of too many nights on frozen ground. You keep walking. There's no map, just instinct. Avoid people, avoid roads, avoid thought. In the ruins of a burned out village, you find shelter, charred beams, blackened stones, ash still thick in the cracks, no signs of life, no sounds but wind. You sleep inside what used to be a granary, a cracked wall, a patch of floor that still holds warmth if you press your back to it. You dream of fire, but not fear, just heat, consuming, quiet. When you wake, your mouth tastes like smoke, but the air is clean. You stay in that village for 3 days, not because it's safe, but because it's empty. And emptiness, these days, is a kind of comfort. You fix the granary wall with mud and straw, not because you plan to stay forever, just because your hands need something to shape other than harm. The birds return, small ones, bold. They perch on the beams above you and chirp when you move. You toss them crumbs from old crusts. They bring you silence in return. You begin walking the perimeter, circling the ruins, not for defense, not for habit, just to mark space again, to remind yourself that you still exist within lines. One afternoon, you find a grave, crude, stones in a circle, a small, rotted ribbon tied around one. No name. You sit beside it, not long, just enough. The days stretch thin. Sunlight fades faster now. Winter creeps closer in the way it always does, not with noise, but with absence. Less warmth, less color, less sound. You gather wood. You burn it slow. You wrap your feet in cloth, torn from the old robes you once wore in the city. They smell like a life you don't recognize, and still, you wear them. You find a knife buried in the ash near the baker's, ruin, hilt scorched, blade nicked, but it fits in your palm. You clean it, not because you'll use it, but because it's yours now, and everything else you once owned is either rust, rot, or memory. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, You hear noises in the distance, not close, not certain, just movement. The creak of a cart, the low murmur of voices. Once, a scream that didn't last long. You don't investigate. You've learned that in places like this, the dead rest easier than the living. So you stay still. You listen. You endure. You're not hiding anymore, but you're not showing yourself either. You exist in between, like a shadow stretched across time. One morning, a boy appears, thin, eyes too big for his face, clothes wrapped tight with string. He doesn't speak, just watches you from the edge of the ruin. You don't move, you don't wave. Eventually, he disappears. You see him again 3 days later, this time closer, still watching. He leaves a basket behind, inside, a scrap of dried meat, 3 walnuts, a feather. You eat the meat. You pocket the nuts. You leave the feather. The next day, another basket. This one has a stone with a hole in it and a torn piece of wool. You begin to wonder, is he feeding you or mourning you? You leave behind an old copper pin in return, the kind used for fastening cloaks. You hear him laugh as he finds it. The sound stings, but not in pain, in memory. You don't follow him. You don't ask questions. You just mark the days again, this time with small stones near the grave, one for each morning you wake with breath. The boy stops coming after the 10th. You don't look for him, but the quiet feels heavier now. The birds leave with the cold. Your fingers crack. Your teeth ache. But still, you stand each morning. Still, you walk the perimeter. Still, you boil water. Still, you survive. You dream less. Not because you've healed, but because even your mind has grown tired of revisiting old wounds. One night, you light a fire higher than usual. Let the smoke curl into the sky. Let it say, someone is here. You wait. No one comes. But it felt good to be seen, even just by the dark. The fire burns low. It never burned bright. You didn't feed it enough to shout, just enough to breathe. You sit near the edge of its glow, boots stretched toward the ash, knees bent like a hunter waiting to become prey. But nothing comes. The night stays still. You feel it all the way down. Not fear, not loneliness, not even pain, just wait. The kind that doesn't push you down, the kind that settles over your chest and stays. There's a frost in your beard now. You wipe it away without thought. Routine. The copper pin you gave the boy lies on the ground near your foot. He must have returned it, or maybe the wind did. You don't touch it. Not yet. The granary wall has held up. Your repairs weren't pretty, but they were solid. It doesn't creak anymore when the wind pushes against it. The birds haven't come back. No one has. You think of the city sometimes, not the life you had there, but the sound of it, the rattle of cartwheels, the muttering of cellars, the slap of wet cloth on stone as laundry was hung, the sharp, quick screams that never lasted long. You miss none of it, but it lives inside you, like marrow. You catch yourself counting again, not days, steps, from the granary to the edge of the ruins, from the ruins to the shrine, from the shrine back to the grave. 87 steps if you take them slow, 73 if your knees are stiff. It becomes ritual, not devotion, just structure, just something to hold on to. One morning, the wind shifts, the scent changes, smoke, but not yours. You don't panic, you just listen. You move the way you always have, quiet, measured, low. You find the source by dusk, a camp in the trees, 3 figures, 2 sleep, one sharp-eyed, sitting with his back to the fire, blade across his lap, not bandits, too quiet, too clean, not soldiers either. They don't move like they're used to taking orders. One of them hums in their sleep, off key, but slow. You don't stay long. You've seen enough. They're not looking for you, but they'll see you if you're not careful. You return to the ruins without doubling back. No time. The air feels thinner now, like something's about to shift. You sharpen the blade you found near the baker's. It doesn't hold an edge well, but it's something. You sleep by the wall that night, not in the corner, with your back pressed to the cold stone, your eyes on the sky. You think of water, deep, black water, the kind that drowns without struggle. You wonder if it would be quieter than all this, but the thought passes, like all the others. You eat the last of the dried roots in the morning, chew them slow, let the bitterness coat your tongue. It wakes you better than sleep. You draw a new symbol on the wall, not one you learned, not one anyone taught, just lines, crooked, stacked, quiet. You mark it with your thumb, let the dirt set into it. It means nothing, but now it's yours. The sky doesn't clear, the snow doesn't melt, but your hands remember warmth, just for a moment, and that's enough. For now, the snow deepens, not fast, not sudden, just a steady blanketing, a soft white smothering of all the edges. Your tracks from yesterday are gone. Your markers, small stones, twisted twigs, notches in the bark, blurred or buried, the world is smoothing itself out, erasing detail, erasing you. You don't resist. You press your feet down with purpose, not to be seen, just to feel the weight of your body still tethered to the earth. The granary stays quiet. The birds never returned. You stopped expecting them. Even the wind is softer now, not kind, just tired. The copper pin by your bedroll has begun to green. You don't touch it. You just watch it change. Some days, you wake without knowing how long you slept. The light lies. Your breath clouds in the air, whether it's morning or dusk. You sharpen the blade again. There's not much edge left to take, but you run the stone along it anyway. Not for killing, for remembering, the feel of repetition, the sound of steel against grit, the way the motion tells you who you used to be. You drink snowmelt, bitter, cold. You boil it when you can, but most nights the fire dies before you're ready. You don't light it again. Let the dark come. Let the cold ask its questions. You answer in silence. One morning, you find tracks outside the granary. Not animal, not fresh, but human. Light tread, small. They lead to the edge of the ruins and vanish. The boy or someone else. You don't follow. You stay still. Let the unknown settle. Like dust. That day, you move slower. Not with caution, with ache. Your joints are swelling in the cold. The old wound in your side has started to itch. You know what that means. Infection waking up. It won't kill you quickly, but it'll take its time. You press a hot stone to the skin. The burn distracts from the throb. You don't scream. There's no one to hear it but the walls, and they've heard worse. In the evening, you patch the wall again. A new crack, thin, running from the beam to the floor. You press in snow-thickened mud with numb fingers. Smooth it out. Make it flush. It won't hold forever, but nothing does. Not even you. The dreams come harder now. Not sharper, just closer. You see faces, not the dead. The ones you spared. The woman in the alley. The boy with the crooked teeth. The old priest in the chapel. They look at you, not with accusation, but with something worse. Understanding. You wake sweating, shivering. You eat nothing that day. Your stomach doesn't ask. At dusk, you walk again, to the edge of the ruins, to the shrine, to the grave. 3 stones now sit around the circle. Not yours. Someone else has begun keeping count. You stare at them for a long time, long enough for the cold to creep into your boots, your sleeves, your thoughts. You leave them there. Let whoever added them continue the ritual. You return to the granary and sit in the doorway, blade across your knees, eyes on the dark. You don't expect anything. That's why you notice the glint, far, far off, beyond the trees. A reflection, not fire, not metal. Eyes? No. Glass? Maybe. You watch it for an hour. It doesn't move. You sleep light that night, not out of fear, out of habit. Fear stopped visiting long ago. When you wake, the glint is gone, but the memory of being seen lingers. It doesn't burn. It hums, soft, steady, like the low note of a bell that only rings for the forgotten. You walk farther that day, beyond your usual circle, beyond even the old ridge. You find an orchard, dead now, branches bare, bark cracked like skin. You sit beneath one of the trees, lean your head back, look through the branches at the pale sky. You remember the city again, not the sound, not the blood, just the smell. Boiled leather, spilled wine, iron. It comes back like a wave, and then it's gone. The orchard feels heavier now, like something was left here once, buried. You don't dig, you don't ask. You leave it behind and walk on. That night, back at the granary, you find a pouch by your bedroll, tied with rough twine. Inside, 3 dried apples, a pinch of salt, and a folded scrap of cloth. On it, a symbol, yours. The one you carved into the granary wall. Someone found it. Someone answered. You eat 1 apple. You fold the cloth back into the pouch. You leave it untouched. Let it sit. Let it mean something, even if you don't know what. You sleep. And for once, no faces come. Only wind, only breath, only the long, slow hush of snow settling into silence, and the faint memory of footsteps not far behind. Snow again, but not falling. Settled, a crust on every surface. It cracks when you walk, even softly, a brittle report that shivers up through your boots, your knees, your chest. You've learned not to flinch. The world is always louder than you. You stand at the edge of the orchard again. Same tree, same branches, black against the pale sky. Same dry wind threading between the trunks. But this time, you're not alone. A shape, still, at the far edge, cloaked, small. You don't speak. You just wait. It doesn't move. Neither do you. A long time passes, then it turns, disappears behind the tree line. You follow at a distance, slow, deliberate, careful, not because you're afraid, because you remember how to disappear, and you don't want to be taught what it feels like from the other side. The tracks are shallow, but they're there, pressed into the ice, like half-formed thoughts. You follow them to the creek bed, frozen solid, then across it, up a low ridge, down the other side, until you see it, an old chapel, not a grand one, wooden, weather-beaten, its roof sagging under a weight of seasons. 1 bell hangs above the door, cracked, mute. You stay in the trees. Watch. 2 figures come out. One walks with a limp, the other younger, small. You can't hear what they say, but you feel the shape of it in the air. Something normal, something human. They carry no blades, no sigils, no badges, just themselves. They don't see you. They go inside. You stay until the sky begins to purple. Then you leave. You walk the long way back. Avoid your own prints. Back at the granary, the pouch is still where you left it, untouched. The cloth with your mark, folded on top. You sit beside it, not on your bedroll, just on the stone floor. You place your hand over the mark. It's not a name. It's not a creed. It's not even a memory. It's just proof. Proof that someone knew you were here. You fall asleep like that, palm against the cloth, blade by your side, back to the wall. You wake to heat, sunlight, real, sharp, warm. For the first time in weeks, the sky is clear, so blue it almost hurts to look at. You leave the granary with your cloak open. Let the air touch your skin. You walk the circle again. Ruins, shrine, grave. And there, another stone, carefully placed, rounded, clean, not from the ruins, from somewhere else. You crouch, touch it. There's a small scrape across one side. You recognize the shape. A mark, not deliberate, just familiar. You leave it there. You don't take things that were offered in silence. Instead, you rise. You walk to the ridge beyond the orchard. You climb it with slow care, each step deliberate, measured. At the top, the world spreads out again. Only this time, you don't look for roads. You don't scan for danger. You just breathe. Your breath doesn't cloud in the air anymore. The thaw is coming, and with it, the noise. You return to the chapel on the second day, not at a distance this time. You walk straight to the door. It's open. The wood swings gently in the wind. Inside, quiet. One bench, one altar, one candle. Lit, burning low. A woman sits with her back to you. Still, old, bent. You step inside. You don't speak. She doesn't turn. You're late, she says. Not angry, not surprised. You sit across the room, not close, not far. The air is warmer than you expected. The candlelight flickers like breath. She told me you might come, the woman says, still facing forward. She, the girl, the one you spared. You say nothing. The silence becomes comfortable. She said you stopped at the chapel, didn't draw, didn't speak. You still don't answer. There aren't many who do that, who hesitate. You let the quiet stretch again. She turns to face you. Her face is lined with age, her eyes soft, with something that might have once been grief, but now only holds space. She said, your hands were shaking. They were. I told her that meant you weren't lost. Not entirely. You close. Your eyes. It doesn't stop the burn. Why are you here? She asks. You don't know, but you answer anyway. Cold, you say. She nods. Always is. After the killing stops, she doesn't ask more, doesn't demand a name, doesn't tell you hers. You sit like that for hours, not talking, not moving, just breathing. When you stand to leave, she says, there's room in the old barn. You pause. She doesn't explain, doesn't insist, just returns to her candle. You leave the chapel, but you don't walk far. The barn is down the slope, near the river bend, old, but solid. You sit in its shadow until the sky turns silver. Then you step inside. You don't sleep, not yet, but you lie down, not in the corner, in the middle, where the wind doesn't reach, where the light can't find you. You don't return to the granary the next day. You walk past it. You touch the wall as you go. A gesture, not goodbye, but thanks. The cloth, the pouch, the stone, they stay. You don't take them. They belong to the place now, to the silence you built. You walk north. The sun follows you, pale and distant. The world is waking, slowly, cautiously, like it forgot what it means to be warm. You pass a traveler on the road, young, wide-eyed. He nods. You nod back. No one stops. That night, you sleep in a ditch, your back against a stone, your blade still sharp. You dream of bells, unrung, hanging in chapels no one prays in. You wake before dawn and keep walking, because that's all there is now. And for the first time, It's enough. The ditch is dry. Not comfortable, but dry. You slept there the night before last, and the night before that, and now, again. The world around it changes. Trees bend, birds shift, clouds pass like cloaks, drawn too tight. But the ditch holds its shape. You don't know if you're returning to it or if it's following you. Either way, it's waiting. You rise with the first whisper of wind, not with purpose, just with rhythm. Your feet know the pattern before your eyes remember the road. There's moss under your boots, soft, wet. Each step makes a sound like breath being taken in and held. You don't leave footprints anymore. The ground swallows them. You stop using trails. Even animal paths feel too exposed. You pass through thickets that tear at your cloak, through bramble that bites deep and leaves your arms striped with memory. You don't wince. There are older wounds on you, some that never bled. The sun is thin, a faded coin behind lace clouds, the kind of sky that's between seasons, too bright to be winter, too brittle to be spring. You feel it in your bones, the ache, the quiet revolt of a body that has outlasted the urgency of violence. You find a stream just past midday. It sings, not loudly, but with effort, like it's trying to remember a song it hasn't sung in years. You kneel beside it, not to drink, just to listen. The water runs over stones, the way time runs over men, slow, indifferent. You cup a handful, let it fall through your fingers. You wonder, how many other hands have done this? Killers, wanderers, fathers, fugitives. You leave the stream without drinking, not because you aren't thirsty, but because you aren't ready. A clearing opens beyond the trees. In the center, a stone pillar leans like a man who fell asleep, standing, weathered, cracked. The top is gone, the base buried. No markings remain. You walk a slow circle around it, once, twice. Then you sit, not on the grass, on the root of a tree just close enough to watch the stone without touching it. You sit for hours. Birds pass overhead. One lands on the broken top. It pecks once, twice, then flies. You whisper something, not a prayer, not a memory, just sound. The way a child might talk to the dark when they're not yet afraid of it. The sun begins to lean west. You stand, stretch your arms until your shoulders pop. You press one hand to the stone. It's cold, but not unfriendly. You walk north. Again, the forest thickens, darkens. You sleep in a cave that night. Low ceiling, damp floor. You don't light a fire. Instead, you line the walls with stones. Old habit. Noise tells you when the outside world wants, and you wake once to the sound of something sniffing at the cave mouth. 4 legs, breath like steam. You don't move. It leaves. You sleep again. When the sky returns, it's bruised with cloud. You walk 3 days. No one speaks to you. You speak to no one. You eat dried moss. Twice, a root you recognize. Once, you catch a bird in your coat. It dies fast. You pluck it, roast it on a stick above a flame no wider than your hand. You eat it bone and all. You dream of teeth breaking. You wake with your jaw clenched. Your molars ache. The road turns from forest to field, barren. Once farmed, now left to shrug and crack. Low wall runs beside it, stones stacked and forgotten. You follow it, a mile, maybe two. You lose count when the wind starts to speak. It doesn't say your name, but it says enough. You keep walking. A hamlet appears. 4 houses, 1 barn, a trough filled with stale water and green slime. You walk through the middle. No one comes out. 1 window opens, closes. No shouts, no questions. They've seen men like you before. Maybe worse. You nod at the barn as you pass. A gesture, not a threat. You leave the hamlet behind by nightfall. You sleep near a dead tree. Its branches point like accusations, but they don't reach you. You curl into your cloak. You wake cold, but alive. 2 weeks pass, or more. You stop counting. The trail leads to a monastery, high on a hill. Stone walls, no guards, but watchful. You don't approach. You watch from the tree line. They ring the bell at dawn, not for mass, for bread. Villagers come, barefoot, with empty sacks. They leave with full ones. No one is turned away. You return each morning to watch. On the 4th day, a boy breaks from the line, runs into the trees. You catch him before he sees you. He's crying. You kneel. He stares. You offer no words. Just step aside. He runs past, back toward the hill. You wait. An hour, then 2. Then you leave. That night, a loaf of bread is left near your shelter, wrapped in cloth, still warm. You eat half, bury the rest, not for later, for someone else. You sleep with the scent of yeast in your beard. You dream of the woman again, the one in the alley, the one you didn't kill. In the dream, she speaks, but not to you, to someone behind you. You try to turn, can't. You wake with a word in your mouth, not one you recognize, but it tastes like forgiveness or fear. The next morning, the monastery bell doesn't ring. You wait. Still, nothing. Smoke begins to rise just past noon. Not thick, but wrong. Not chimney. Smoke. Ash. You move faster than you have in months. Through the trees. Up the hill. Past the grove. The gate is open. No one stops you. Inside, silence. No flames. Just smoke. Heavy in the corners. A body lies near the well. Face down. Robes dark. You step past. Into the hall. More bodies. Not torn, just still. The kind of still that doesn't wake. You find a child crouched behind the altar. Alive, eyes wide. Hands red. He doesn't cry. You sit with him. Say nothing. After a long time, he stands. walks out. You stay. Watch the sun drop through the broken window. You don't bury them. There are too many, and your hands remember too much. But you stay the night. No fire, no food, just breath. You sleep on the stone floor. When you wake, the birds are singing again. You don't know why. You leave the hill, back down the slope, back into the trees, not running, not weeping, just walking, always walking, because the path doesn't end. Not for men like you. It only fades, and you follow it into the blur. The path through the trees is softer now, not because the world is gentler, but because your feet are quieter, lighter, more ghost than man. There are no more sharp turns, no more sudden starts. You no longer glance behind your shoulder every time the wind shifts. What would it matter? Let them come, let the past arrive, let the silence be broken. You walk through a hollow of moss-covered stone. It might have once been a bridge, or a wall, or a road. Now it's just ruin, swallowed by green. Your boots leave faint impressions in the dirt. They vanish within minutes. The land forgets you faster than people do. You find a river, not wide, not deep, but loud. It babbles over rocks, with too much noise for its size. A kind of desperate cheerfulness, like it's trying to convince itself it's still alive. You kneel, cup water in your hands, sip. It tastes like memory, cold, metallic, and half forgotten. You stare into its surface for a long time, not looking for your reflection, just wondering what might be staring back from underneath. You don't see anything, but you feel it. Eyes, not hostile, not kind, just watching. You don't speak to them. They wouldn't answer. You follow the river upstream. It leads you through an old orchard, wild now. Branches twisted, roots rising like ribs from the earth. You see apples on the ground, bruised, rotting, still red. You pick one, bite. Sour. You chew slowly, swallow harder. Food is food. The sky is dimming again. You watch it shift, gray to violet, to indigo. A kind of bruising, a slow descent. You find a small structure, half buried in vines, pressed into the hillside. A hunter's shed, a smuggler's hold. You don't care. You step inside. The air smells of mildew and wet wood, but it's dry and quiet. You sit on the floor, back to the wall. You let your cloak pool around your shoulders. The blade rests beside you, not in your hand. You haven't drawn it in weeks. You wonder if it's gone dull. You wonder if it matters. Sleep comes slowly. When it does, it brings a strange warmth. You dream of being underwater, weightless, breath held, not drowning, just drifting. When you wake, your mouth is dry. You drink from your hand again, then walk north again, always north. A village appears 2 days later, not large, but not afraid. Children run in the open. Men shout across fields. Women hang clothes from windows. No guards. No iron. No fear. You stay on the hill above them. Watch. You can see the chapel from here, and the market stall, and the small fence where goats press their heads through for grass. You don't move. You don't approach. You don't deserve this place, but it's enough to know it exists. That somewhere life continues, even without you in it. You sleep beneath a tree that night. It smells of sap and old bark. You dream of a hallway filled with footsteps, but none of them are yours. You wake before dawn. Keep walking. The road is rough now, not from weather, from time, ruts that have forgotten what made them, cracks that no longer remember the wheels. You walk it anyway. Every few miles, a new sound joins you, a bird call, a rustling. Once, a song carried on wind from a place you'll never reach. You hum along. The tune is old, but you know it. You don't know how. Only that once, long ago, someone sang it to you, or near you, or before you, and it stayed. You pass an abandoned mill. Its wheel is broken, its door gone. You find a length of cord inside. You take it, not for binding, not for traps, just to hold the soles of your boots together a little longer. You sleep in the mill. Rain comes that night, soft, persistent. It drums on the roof like fingers tapping a farewell. You don't remember the last time you heard rain from shelter. You don't try to sleep. You just listen, eyes open, hands still, letting it fall. The days stretch. You mark time by the ache in your knees, by the growl in your belly, by the number of times you reach for the blade, and remember, you don't need it, not yet. You meet someone on the fourth day, an old man, bent, thin, pulling a cart behind him. He sees you. You see him. No words. He lifts a hand. You nod. He keeps walking. So do you. It's enough. Later that night, you find a bundle by the road, wrapped in cloth. Inside, 3 onions, a crust of cheese, and a piece of charcoal. Someone knew you'd pass this way. Someone remembered. You eat 1 onion. Keep the others. Use the charcoal to mark a stone near your camp. Not a message, not a sign, just proof. The next morning, the mark is gone, washed by dew, or stolen by time. It doesn't matter. You keep walking. A town appears, larger than the village. Walls, guards, noise. You don't go in. You skirt its edges, stick to the woods, camp in a ditch filled with pine needles. You hear laughter that night from the town, drunken, stumbling, joyful. You don't remember what that feels like. You don't try. You sleep with one eye open. The next day, you move on. No faces, no names, just the sound of distant bells. Faint, far, almost music. Eventually, the forest thins, the land flattens, and ahead, a plain of stone and wind, empty, waiting. You step into it, and the earth doesn't change, but you do, because now there is no cover, no shadow, no place to disappear, only open sky, and the slow, slow beat of your heart reminding you are still here. The plane does not echo, it swallows. Your footsteps fall without reply. No birds, no trees, no voices, only wind, soft, but certain, brushing against your cloak like a hand that knows too much to ask anything anymore. The sun is white, a disk in a pale sky. No warmth, just light, just enough to reveal that there's nothing ahead but more plain. You walk because you've always walked, not toward anything, not from anything, just with gravity, with habit, with the steady ache of your legs telling you, we're still here. A bird passes overhead, silent, alone. You watch it disappear over the low line of the horizon. Its wings don't flap, they only glide, like it knows where it's going, or doesn't need to. You envy it, but only for a moment. Envy requires memory, and you've started forgetting. Not names, not faces. Those are long gone. You're forgetting shapes. The shape of safety, the shape of shelter, the shape of yourself. Your shadow still follows you, long, thin, unsteady on the uneven ground. But it's quieter now. It no longer tries to lead. By dusk, you see the remains of a road, just stones, flat, cracked, laid by hands that died centuries ago. You step onto it. It feels strange to walk on something meant to guide. You wonder who built it. You wonder if they ever imagined someone like you might be the last to use it. The road leads to a ruin. Low walls, collapsed arches, a tower without its top, a monastery once, or a fort, or both. You pass under what's left of the gate. Inside, nothing, just space, wind, dust, the memory of prayer or violence. You can't tell which. You sit on a block of stone, run your hand across its face, smoothed by weather, by time, by the hands of men, now buried in the silence you carry with you. You find a well, covered, but cracked. You peer in, dark, deep, the kind of depth that makes your breath slow. You drop a stone. Wait, wait, wait. No sound. You smile, just a little. Not for joy, for proof. Even now, some places can still swallow things whole. You sleep in what was once a chamber. Walls caved in, no roof. You lie with your face to the stars. No fire, just breath. And that faint, constant feeling that the earth is listening. Morning is kind, not warm, not bright, but still. The wind has died. The stones are dry. You sit up slowly. Your back aches. You don't stretch. You just accept it. You eat what's left of the onion. You chew slow. Let it burn. Let it remind you. You walk north. Again. Always north. The road continues. Barely. Grass grows between the stones. Bushes claw at the edges. But it remains. Not out of strength. Out of refusal. It wants to be remembered. You give it that. At midday, you meet someone. A woman. Alone. She's carrying a basket of herbs. Walking toward the ruin. She stops. You stop. She says nothing. You nod. She nods. Then passes. No fear in her eyes, just understanding. You sit on a low wall and watch her until she vanishes behind the broken gate. She does not look back. You walk on. The plain narrows, turns to hills, gentle but rising. You climb. Your breath shallows. Your knees protest, but you climb. At the top, you see water, a lake, still, black, wrapped in fog like a secret. It's kept too long. You descend slowly. The wind picks up again. This time, it's cold. It tastes of iron. At the edge of the lake, you find stones, flat ones, stacked like graves. No names, no markings, just presence. You sit on one. Dip your fingers into the lake, cold enough to make you flinch. You drink anyway. It bites all the way down, but it clears your head. Your hands shake after. You hold them still. Let them remember. Let them forget. You sleep by the lake. No dreams. Only breath. Only the slow ticking of time, passing you by like a cart you chose not to board. The next day, you walk around the lake. It takes longer than you expect. Your legs are slower now. You stop often, not for rest, for silence, to listen. The world is quieter now, and when it speaks to you, not in words, in rhythm, in temperature, in the softness of the ground beneath your boots. You follow an animal trail north. It leads to a cave, low, dry. Inside, you find bones, old human, wrapped in a cloak, so rotted it falls apart when you touch it. You don't recoil. You just sit beside what remains. You imagine the face, the hands. You imagine who they were. You don't imagine their death, only their silence. You sleep beside them, not out of comfort, out of kinship, because in another season, another year, another kind of hunger, you might be them, and maybe, one day, someone will sit beside your bones and not turn away, only pause, only breathe, and carry on. You leave the bones where they are, covered, still, dry. You don't speak to them. You don't offer prayer. Just a moment, a pause, a glance back before you step beyond the mouth of the cave. Outside, the wind has changed again. No longer iron, no longer sharp. It's softer now, carrying the smell of moss, of old trees, of something green trying to grow again. You step carefully. The path down from the cave is slick with wet stone and scattered pine needles. Your foot slips once. You catch yourself, not with strength, just instinct, old muscle memory, that twitch behind the ribs, that flick of thought that says, not yet. You find a stream and follow it, down through the woods. Its voice is different from the last one. This one is slower, older, the kind of sound that doesn't ask to be heard, but you hear it anyway. You drink again, less bitter now. You think of the chapel bell from weeks ago, the warm loaf of bread, the little boy with red on his hands, and no sound in his throat. You wonder where he went. or if he just stayed, became something else. You keep walking, you lose the stream, or maybe it lost you. The woods thicken, the light thins. You sleep beneath a tree that smells like winter. Its bark is flaking, its limbs bent low. You curl into your cloak and dream of a room, stone walls, a single chair, your own breathing bouncing back at you. You wake before dawn and walk. A village appears, but it's not like the others. No smoke, no sound. The fences are broken, the windows empty. You step between the houses like you're walking through bones. Some doors hang open, others are gone entirely. You find a cradle in one, still rocking. You don't ask why. You don't check for bodies. You've seen what abandoned places leave behind. You know what the air smells like when something has been lost and left too long. You leave without touching anything. Back to the trees, back to the roots, the dirt, the endless hush. By midday, it begins to snow. Not heavy, just a dusting, but it settles on your shoulders, your hair, the back of your hands. You don't brush it off. You let it stay. Let it tell the world you were here, just for a moment. You eat the last of your dried meat that night. Chew slowly. Swallow with effort. You sleep against a stone wall near an old well. Its rope is broken. Its bucket long gone. You look down anyway. No echo, just black. You understand. Not everything needs to answer back. By now, you've stopped naming days. There's no point. The sun rises. The sun sets. You walk. You rest. You wait. Not for something to happen, just for something to end. You reach a road. Paved. Not new, but used. You see prints. Boots. Hooves. Wheels. You follow it west. Not because you want to, because the wind tells you to. The road leads to a river. Wide. Moving fast. There's a bridge. Stone. Hole. No guards. Just time-worn statues. On either side. Weathered saints. Or knights. Or angels. The faces are gone, but their arms remain. Raised. Open. Not in warning. In invitation. You cross. Slow. Each step echoes. Not loud, but real. You stop halfway. Look down. The water is black and loud, rushing over rocks and broken trees. You imagine falling, not dying, just falling. The silence, the weight, the sudden peace of no longer having to choose a direction. You don't jump. You finish crossing. At the far side, you sit beneath one of the statues. It leans slightly, like it's listening. You whisper a name. You don't know whose, but it feels like the right thing to do. Then you rise and walk. The wind follows. So does the cold. So do the thoughts. Old ones. Not regrets. Just moments. The alleyway. The chapel. The orchard. The boy. The pouch. The copper pin. The scrape of steel. The feeling of walking away from your last kill without looking back. The realization that no one came after you, not because you escaped, because you were no longer a threat, because your name had already been buried, because whatever cause or coin had once driven you was forgotten by those who gave it. Now only your legs carry you, your thoughts, your breath, and somewhere deep inside, that small flicker of something that hasn't gone out. Not warmth, not hope, just endurance. The kind that doesn't roar. It hums, like the wind in the trees, like the last coals in a fire, and that, somehow, is enough. You reach the edge of a valley. It opens before you like a wound, and you walk into it. The valley holds no memory of what came before you. It stretches wide and long, dipped in gray light, covered in frost that clings to every blade of dead grass. Not snow, not ice, just cold, settled in the skin of the earth. You step lightly. Each footprint fades behind you. The ground swallows them, as if even it refuses to remember you. And maybe that's what you've become now, something the world no longer bothers to echo. The hills on either side rise like broken shoulders. There are trees up there, bare and brittle, branches clawing at the flat sky, as if they're asking why the wind stopped singing to them. You don't look up. You just keep walking. There's no path anymore, just direction. The compass in your body that always points away from where you've been, north, west, forward. Sometimes you forget you ever worked for coin, that there were names, faces, contracts, a brotherhood, a guild, a whisper in the dark that said who must die and when. All that feels washed now, like writing in ash after the fire has gone cold. You remember your first blade more clearly than your first order. You remember the way the steel felt. Too light, too clean, too eager. You remember the second one, too. Heavier. Blood never left it quite right. You recall sharpening it over and over, not to make it keener, but to scrub away what had been done. With it, you were told that was pointless. That blood never truly leaves steel. That steel never forgets. But you did it anyway, because sometimes you needed to pretend it did. You stop at a hollow, a scoop in the earth, half filled with yellow grass and patches of frozen mud. There's a fallen log nearby, split and moss-covered, old enough that the center has begun to rot. You sit, not to rest, not to watch, just because your legs moved you here and stopped. Your eyes close, but you don't sleep. You let the cold work through your clothes, let it settle against your ribs. The wind doesn't push, it hovers. The stillness becomes something solid, a kind of weight pressing into your shoulders. You don't resist. You've carried worse, far worse. When you rise, your joints whisper back at you, stiff, slow, tired of this game. You keep walking. The valley narrows. The grass gives way to stone. You pass through a thin ravine where the walls crowd close on either side, just enough for a horse cart, if someone were foolish enough to drive one here. You drag your hand along the rock as you move, fingers tracing grooves that might have been cut by water, or time, or someone like you. A name comes to your lips. You don't say it. You don't remember who it belongs to, only that it meant something once, like a flame in your gut, or a rope around your throat. Maybe both. You pass the ravine. The world opens again. Flat land, broken fence posts, a scattering of stone circles, fire pits long grown over, hearths from homes no longer standing. You step around them, careful, not out of respect, not quite, more like habit, as if something still lives here, something that might ask why your feet walked so close to what it built. You stop at a pit, this one deeper than the rest, not a fire circle, not a grave, just hollow. You crouch, peer into it. It looks like a well, but there's no stone lining, no rope, no bucket, just earth, just black. You drop a twig, no sound, no bounce, just gone. And in that moment, you think maybe that's all you've ever been doing, dropping into the quiet, disappearing inch by inch. You set up camp that night with no fire. There's nothing left in your bag. No bread, no root, only a scrap of old cloth you used to wrap your fingers when they crack from the cold. You don't eat. You drink from your cupped hands. Melted snow pooled between two rocks. You lean against a boulder shaped like a hunched man, and you pretend for a moment that he's watching over you. You whisper a joke to him. Your voice comes out like dry leaves scraping stone. The boulder does not laugh. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to rest them from the pale light, the kind of sky glow that never quite becomes day and never quite accepts night, the in-between, where most of your life has lived. You wake to footsteps, far away, light, measured. You lie still. They pass. You don't know who or why. You don't check. You simply breathe again and wait for the morning. When it comes, you walk. Your feet ache, blistered in places you thought had gone numb years ago. But still, they carry you through a grove of pines that smell like memory, through a thicket that leaves you with scratches you won't clean, to a ridge. And there, the sea. You weren't expecting it. A long silver sheet at the edge of the world. You stand, not in awe, not in joy, just stillness, like something inside you finally stopped moving. You descend slowly. There's a path here, barely, once used, long ago. Old boots like yours, old wheels, maybe, a cart, a man carrying lumber, or salt, or the last prayer of a dying brotherhood, folded into linen and sealed with wax. You follow it. At the shore, you find ruins, low walls, a dock, half-buried netting frozen in sand. The water laps. It doesn't call to you, but it waits, like it has all the time in the world. You walk the shoreline, rocks smooth beneath your boots. Shells crack. You crouch once, pick up a bit of driftwood, turn it in your hands. It's soft, splintering. You carve something into it with the tip of your blade. Not a word, not a name, just lines. crooked, stacked. The same symbol you left back at the granary wall so long ago. The same one on the scrap of cloth. You press it into the wet sand, let the water touch it, and then leave it there. The wind changes again, carries salt now, the kind that dries your lips and soaks into your boots. You climb the hill behind the ruins. At the top is a stone marker, flat, unmarked. You sit beside it. You don't ask who it belongs to. You don't claim it. You just share the silence. The sky begins to fade into dusk. A slow, gray wash across the world. No fire, no shelter, no sound. Just you, the sea, the wind, and everything you've tried to forget, curling inside your ribs like smoke that never quite clears. And as your eyes close, not for sleep, not for death, just because there's nothing left to see, you feel the weight of every step you ever took. And finally, it begins to lift, but only a little, just enough to keep walking one more day. Good night.